But the Mariners aren't where they are post-deadline with this run without Teoscar Hernandez and what he's done at the plate. It has been something to watch, him turning around in August.
When he's hot, this lineup is just different because when he's playing at the level of capability that everybody knows he can play, and his peak performance, what he did in Toronto, what he does when he's hot here in Seattle, it's just a different lineup 1 through 9 because it is such an impact bat. And when we've seen him get hot in certain stretches of the season, that tends to be his trends, that he gets hot at certain points of the season. And when he does, he gets red hot.
A 168 WRC plus since the deadline. And normally you'd say, wow, that's a pretty good 3-week stretch. However, there's about 5 guys on the Mariners team that are actually doing that post-deadline, which is kind of funny. But Teoscar's really stood out because, as I mentioned in Wednesday's episode, I sat here on this podcast and said, why isn't he getting traded? Why didn't they trade him at the deadline? If they're going to sell, why didn't you sell your clear-cut rental? Well, this is why. He's been a catalyst. And even in this White Sox series, since we recorded Wednesday's episode, he continues to mash and he continues to hit balls out of the ballpark. His strikeout rate has gone down. And the thing I like the most, they've really been able to just bounce him up and down the lineup wherever they feel comfortable with him hitting and wherever the lineup structure works. And it hasn't really mattered, and he's hitting all those spots. That's another thing about the increased depth of this lineup is you really have the ability to move these pieces all up and down this lineup 1 through 9. And it hasn't really mattered all that much, and the production's still coming. Teoscar, no matter where he's been in the lineup, has continued to hit.
The lineup's basically set with JP and Julio at 1-2 when both those guys are healthy, but you look at the rest of the guys between Ty, Cal, Gino, Teoscar, you can jumble those guys any way you want, 3 through 6 essentially, and there's no worry about any of them at this point because they're all red hot, and maybe nobody more so than Teoscar with the way he's played. I mean, you said the 168 WRC plus since the deadline. It's at 174 the last 2 weeks. 1017 OPS. He's hitting nearly 400. That's red hot.
And now the responsibility of being an outfielder, like physically playing out in the outfield every day, is no longer required for him because you have 3 young guys that you can put out in the outfield on a given day and let Teoscar DH. 5 of the 19 games he's played in post-deadline, he's DH'd, which is, I think, a little bit higher than he normally did. I mean, he would kind of move in there sometimes earlier in the season, but this, since it's available, and especially since Tom Murphy's hurt, who usually occupies the DH spot when he's not starting behind the plate, he's been able to DH a little bit more, and I guess help him get off his feet as he enters older age than all those other outfielders out there. So it's just more of the fact of this depth helping Teoscar out a little bit more, and they don't have to rely on him for all the production, which is, I think, what Teoscar always has wanted. And that's what he had in Toronto, where he wasn't supposed to be the aircraft carrier in the middle of the lineup. And if you look at it right now, he still doesn't have to be. He's not the first guy that comes to mind when you say the Mariners need to produce more offense. No, it's everybody. And I think that's where Teoscar operates the best.
My brain has done such an emotional tug of war all year about how I feel about Teoscar moving forward and if I want him back on the Mariners next season. In this stretch right now, I'm saying yes. Now, I don't know if that means a qualifying offer. I don't know if that means that you bring him back on a shorter, or not shorter AAV, but shorter year, smaller AAV deal in free agency. There we go. Where he returns to Seattle. And again, I go so back and forth on this because he has these cold stretches. He's striking out all the time. He can't put bat to ball. And you just say, he's not there. But then he goes through stretches like this, and you're like, the offense is so different when he's at his best. Now, as we sit right now, all of a sudden I lean back toward yes, and I swear my mind changes every week.
I have some fun nuggets, actually, about this offense that we'll get to in our MLB wraparound, because it does preclude to one of the teams we're talking about in our MLB wraparound. I did, if you want a thought, I did send this to you yesterday, and your essential reaction was, what the fuck is this? But we'll get to that. So that's a notion for you to stick around and listen to the entire episode. And I will note, we know Julio had his 4-day streak of 4+ hits, 17 total hits from the final 2 games of the Kansas City series into the first 2 games of the Houston series. Well, Teoscar contributed to that streak as well. If we look at a team, they don't start this win streak without him going 5 for 5 in game 2 against Kansas City and really helping them get a 10-8 win in extra innings and really kicking this off. He got the barrel rolling before Julio did.
How are you feeling about Teoscar right now? If he gets a reasonable deal, would you bring him back next year?
Yep. Because who else you bring back? I know you're comfortable with Marlowe and Canzone, but I don't think we're at the point if the Mariners believe Cade Marlowe's an everyday guy. I think they like Dom Canzone's bat enough to think he's an everyday guy. Julio is obviously an everyday guy, but Cade Marlowe, maybe not. And if you don't believe he's an everyday guy, then you need a third outfielder. So yes, yeah, that's me. I'm just talking myself through it, talking my brain through it. So yeah, I'm good. A moderate offer would be good for Teoscar Hernandez.
The third being aside from Kelenic and Julio.
Right. Sorry, yeah. I forgot Jared. Yeah. Well, that's what happens when he doesn't play. I forget about him. But
I don't.
Regardless, they still need more bats. They'd still need more bats. And there's no guarantee Mr. Number 17 down in Anaheim is going to come here and occupy a DH spot. So that would be another option as well. If you just want to stick him at DH, and maybe as he gets older, that's a spot that he'll be at more and more.